Welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today I have episode 2 in our 4-week Pride Month podcast. Month. I said month twice. That's okay. I have another amazing story from G. Scott Graham on the loss of his husband. And oh my gosh, we go into so much more. We talk about therapy. We talk about the DSM-5. We talk about just the raw honesty of real, true human emotion. But before we get into that, I want to throw a couple quick trigger warnings out there. There is some graphic descriptions of a traumatic death, as well as some language. So if you have little ones around, may want to put the headphones in, which I'm not saying this podcast is like fully like adult themed, but kind of just use your sense here with your children and what they can and can't handle. So there's definitely some language here. And also, before we dive in, I would love to see some of my amazing listeners over at the Good Grief Society. If you head on over to nikkithedeathdoula.com, you find some great information there on the Good Grief Society. It is an amazing virtual space for grief support, listeners of the podcast, and really anybody. We have grief circles once a month. I send out journal prompts once a week for every single day of the year. And it's not always grief themed. Sometimes it's just fun because we need to take a break from our grief every now and then, and that's okay. And I have other speakers and educational type peoples as well as workshops every other month too. And some other great stuff over there. We have a Slack channel where you can communicate with other members all month long. So come check that out at nikkithedeathdoula.com. And if you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula. That would be such a great help for me. As I always say, that money goes to a line item in my budget so I can provide free pro bono support within the community. So if you'd like to support me, you can do that at patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula. If you're not the Patreon type, there's plenty of other ways you can help donate to me providing support where I can. Just reach out or go to my website. Everything's there. All right, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode, my amazing conversation with G. Scott Graham. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in again this week for Good Grief. I am so excited to have a spectacular guest with me. I have G. Scott Graham here waiting to chat with me. Scott, I can read your bio, but I'm not going to do that. I love to let my guests use their own words. So would you mind telling my guests a little bit about you and why you're here today?
I'm here because I got invited by Nikki, and I've written 5 books on grief total. I lost my husband of 31 years right before COVID hit in December of 2019, and everything shut down. I am trained as a psychotherapist, and I'm a licensed substance abuse counselor. I'm here in Vermont, and after he died, I realized that everything that I was teaching and doing to people as a therapist was complete bullshit. That was really humbling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still humbled by that all these years later. As I'm on a mission now to shift the screwed up way that we look at grief.
Yeah,
It's really screwed up.
it is. I hard agree. And that's the whole reason I started this podcast is because this grief, death, dying subjects we don't talk about. So we don't know what the heck we're doing. And we tend to put our foot in our mouths. And anyway, I could go all day. But so tell us, let's go back
Okay.
before we get into the books and the what is wrong with everything. Tell us a little bit about your husband who passed away.
Um, Brian was great. Um, uh, I'm a little, so I'm a little emotional now because my niece, who is the same age as me, um, she's in the hospital and she's having some heart issues. Her
Oh,
heart's working at like 10% or something like that.
oh my gosh.
And she's 8 months older than me, so she's like my sister. And it's especially, uh, I don't know, palpable in my life right now because she has been with her husband for 38, 36 years, 37 years, something like that. They got married um, just before I met Brian.
Mm.
And they've been together. They really, John and Brenda really stand out. They're like the straight counterpart of how I was with Brian. Like,
Oh.
you know, pe we live in such a disposable society.
Mhm.
People dispose of their, I run an animal rescue, they dispose of farm animals, their dogs, their kids, their relationships. And
Yeah.
for a relationship to last means that not that people were lucky and they had no problems. A relationship means that they are committed and they stuck in there and worked things out. And
Yeah.
John and Brenda echo that. And
Oh,
so she's been in the hospital and John has been there like almost 24/7, just going home to take a shower.
yeah.
He's been sleeping there in the room with her, you
Yeah.
know. Um, that's exactly what Brian would have done if I were in the hospital.
Yeah.
Um, the the level of commitment, dedication, and support um, is just so evident and in the relationship and admirable. And that's how my relationship with Brian was. We were
Yeah.
there for each other um, through thick and thin. Even till
Yeah.
when he died, I was there with we
Yeah.
were together.
Oh. And so he died before COVID. So you said it was the end of 2019. And
Yeah,
so
right before
you,
Christmas.
oh, that's yeah, my mom just passed away this past year. And she died the week before Thanksgiving. So, yeah.
I don't celebrate Christmas anymore.
You know what? She died on the day before my birthday. And I said I can't ever celebrate my damn birthday again. I'm not mad at her obviously, but I'm just like I can't
Yeah.
anyway. So I could put this isn't about me. It's
So I
about you
want
too.
people that are listening to this to hear what Nikki and I just said.
Mhm.
So you might feel pressure from people to celebrate
Mhm.
July 4th because, you got to get over it and move on. Brian died 6, 7 years ago. It's your mom died, and it's that stuff that people are telling you is bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Don't buy
Utter.
into it.
Yep.
You do and honor yourself and your soul.
I'm applauding. I'm applauding. Thank you. Yeah, amen. Yeah, nobody would fault me for not wanting to celebrate my birthday, but and
There are a
there's
lot of
so
people who
much,
fault people for not wanting to celebrate Christmas or
yeah.
Thanksgiving
That's
or
exactly what I was about to say is especially with holidays, people are like, "Oh, but it's, they would want you to be happy and they would want you to and like I don't really fucking care what they wanted. I'm sad right now and I don't want to celebrate Christmas." So, having that bit of grace for anybody, even if it's 10 years after the loss, if they're still grieving at Christmas time, they're still grieving at Christmas time and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay.
And that's another piece. You just did it again. And I want to point that out to people. Did you hear
Hmm.
what she said? You can rewind it. I'll wait a second. All right, I'm back. In case you didn't rewind it, I'm going to tell you. She said they would want you to be happy.
Hmm.
That when people do that, they are gaslighting you.
Hmm.
They are gaslighting you. Any of
Hmm.
that line, which is clearly manipulative, they would
Yeah.
want you to be happy. They would want you to go on. What would they want? They would want this. They would want that. It's they don't know what the fuck your people in your life
Yeah.
want. Come on.
Yeah.
You better than anybody else know what they would want.
Yeah.
And I believe what they would want would be for you to be true to yourself and what's going
Hmm.
on with you. That's
Yeah.
what Brian would want for me. He
Yeah.
never wanted me to be something other than what I was
Right.
in our relationship. That's why I loved him so much
Yeah.
because he never ever said, "You're too short, you're too fat, you're too this, you're too that, your hair's
Hmm.
too long," all these other things that was going on. I
Yeah.
never got any of that.
Yeah.
If I said I was going to do X, he would say, "Great." If I said I was going to do the opposite of X, he would
Yeah.
still say, "Great." So
Yeah.
what I know what he would want. If he said, you know, you're still grieving and going through this stuff, he would say, great.
Yeah. Yeah. I know,
Don't buy
like
it.
if my husband were to if I were to pass away, my husband were surviving me, um of course I want him to be happy. I want nothing but the best for him, but also I don't want to dismiss his feelings. And if his feelings are sad and hurt or whatever his grief journey would look like for me, that's okay. Because I just like, and you said it perfectly. Like I want him to be true to himself. So thank you. I love that. So, okay, back to you lost your husband right before COVID. So then COVID happened just a few months later, then, and you had to go through this grief process while we were all locked down and in isolation.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really hard.
Yeah.
I'm still going through this process. So,
Hmm.
you know, a way to think about that is, you know, early grief, right? When everything has collapsed and you're trying to figure things out,
Hmm.
not just from a emotional standpoint, but from a practical financial standpoint, right? That's another thing that happens to a lot of folks. Their partner dies and they have to move because they can now no longer afford to live where they're living because they were dependent on that income. Um, and it took a lot of sorting out. And that's when I wrote my first book, really challenging some of the concepts that are out there about grief. That book's called Come As You Are, back to what we were just talking about, Nikki.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, not as other people want you to be, not as psychotherapists want you to be. No,
Right.
come as you are. Um, and I wrote about my early experiences, including going to see because, you know, a friend, we were surrounded by friends who were just buying into the baloney. And he's been to psychotherapy for his entire life. He's probably still in psychotherapy, God.
Hmm.
And he was like, you need to go see a therapist. You need to go see a therapist. They will help you. They will help you. And so to appease him, I went to see a therapist. I interviewed folks. They were all, you know, wackadoodles in terms of, I asked them, I said, and you should do this. People should do this if they go see a therapist. You should ask them, what is your psychological theory? Like
Oh, okay.
what do you base what we're saying on,
Gotcha.
right?
Okay. Hmm.
What's the thing that's driving there? Uh, the second thing you should be asking is, do you give homework? What kind of homework do you
Hmm.
give? Right? What kind of results can I expect? Do you do treatment plans? And will I get a copy of my treatment plan? Those are really
Hmm.
important, right? A treatment plan is like what they're going to work on. You take your car to be repaired, and it's because the engine light comes on. You're going to meet with the mechanic, and he's going to give you an estimate and all this other stuff. That's a treatment plan. That's what they're going to do to fix your car. Your
Hmm.
therapist, by if they're taking your insurance, they have to have a treatment plan because their
Hmm.
insurance company wants to see it, and they
Right.
should share that with you. So I asking these questions, you know, I weeded out a bunch of people because they were all like, we're going to take you through the stages of grief, and I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist and all this other stuff. And so if you didn't see what Nikki just did, she did that because the stages of grief is bullshit. Anyway, so I weeded them out and went to see this therapist, and she turned out to be just awful. Awful. I write about it in the book. And I did the hardest thing that I've ever had to do as a quote unquote patient or client, or I mean, it was really, really hard. I couldn't believe how hard it was. She wasn't listening to me. She wasn't doing what she was supposed to do. Um, and I brought that to her attention. And
Hmm.
instead of her addressing it, right? Like, you know, I'm gonna I'm gonna be that. I'm gonna work on these things. I'm gonna make those changes so I'm delivering the services you need.
Hmm.
She wanted to like process my feelings towards her. And I was like, I didn't come here to process my feelings towards you. I could, That's all I mean. Yeah. This is a standard psychotherapy ploy, by the way, for you people that are,
Okay.
because they're like, let's explore this because this is coming up. Let's explore what's coming up for you. Um, she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it. I sent her homework. She wouldn't give me any homework. I did homework anyway and sent it in to her to read. She wouldn't read it.
Right.
She wouldn't read it. And I called her out on it, and then I called her out on it again. She's like, let's just explore your feelings around me not do. I'm like, I'm not here to explore my fucking feelings about you not doing
Right.
your job and what I asked you to do and what you said you would do. I was in the middle of the session and I stood up and walked out. And
Hmm.
that was so incredibly hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
We give therapists the magic wand like we do
Mhm.
doctors. So we
Yeah.
go to the therapist, and if the therapist says the world is blue and
Hmm.
you have this diagnosis, we're like, oh, okay, I have this. I better listen to you and do what you say, or I gotta talk to my therapist. And some people stay stuck in therapy for years, which is
Hmm.
crazy. Um, that that happens because therapy should be like your car. Right? If you took your car to a mechanic and that mechanic worked on your car for years, you'd be like, screw that, I'm getting a different mechanic,
Right.
right? All right,
Yeah.
I'm talking too long.
It's
I have a friend Lou who watches these pieces, and then he says to me, "Oh my God, you're talking forever." So,
okay. It's all good. It's all good.
did you hear
Uh,
that, Lou? She said it's all good.
It's not good. Well, I just appreciate you bringing that up because I've had a couple. This is probably why I'm so resistant to speaking to therapists, like for myself, not like in general, but for me because I've had so many bad therapists in the past. I had one who I kid you not looked at me and said, "I don't know. I was really struggling with the loss of my brother because I didn't deal with my grief for him for like 4 or 5 years, and then it all blew up in my face, and I was really having a hard time." And she said to me, "I don't see why you can't just get over this." And I was like, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" Oh my God. Anyway,
See,
so
do you hear these stories, people? Hear these stories. They're
no,
just because someone goes to school and gets some sort of degree doesn't
right,
mean they have a magic wand and you should listen to them.
right.
And proof, I throw this out. I might be wrong on the date, but this is the thing, December 15th, 1973. That stands out to me. And do you know why that's important, Nikki?
Why? That was
On
a few
this,
years before I was born, so
on
just a few.
December 15th, 1973, hundreds of thousands of gay men and lesbians throughout the United States were miraculously cured of mental illness because the American Psychological Association voted to take homosexuality off its list of mental illness.
Okay. I
If
knew that
you
happened around then. I didn't know that was the date. Thank you.
that should tell you something about how fucked up this is because there's a group of people that get together and vote, and on one day you can be a mental patient and on the next day you're not,
Right.
right?
That is
And it's not just with being gay, it's
right.
grief and these other things that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they just recently added prolonged grief disorder to the
Oh,
DSM-5.
that's a
Yeah.
screwed up
Please,
thing.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this, if that's
All right.
okay.
No, it is the most fucked up thing
Yeah.
ever. And this is the core diagnosis of that designation is that your grief takes longer to go through, or it's persisting longer than what society says it should take. That's the core thing of that
Yep.
diagnosis.
Yep.
That there's some sort of societal thing that says, so like they're saying, okay, you're, I don't know, this religion, and your religion says, okay, grief should last 3 years. So
Mhm.
your grief's okay, but your grief is not okay because you're not that religion.
Yeah.
And it got pushed through by vote,
Hmm.
just like
Yeah.
Homosexuality got cured by a vote. All these people that were not mentally ill on one day now meet the criteria for mental illness.
Yeah.
And then of course getting pills to change your internal emotional state because that they don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you and I have very similar viewpoints on all of this. So, yeah, anyway. All right. So let's, we're never going to focus, are we? That's okay. So
I think we're very focused.
we're having you know what? I don't care because we're having a fantastic conversation. And it is so important for people to understand that, like you just said, just because somebody has a degree doesn't mean they can be the ones to validate your feelings or invalidate them. Like, and I don't need a book that says DSM-5 on it to tell me if I'm grieving or not, or to validate my grief,
Right.
or to tell me when I should be over it.
Yes.
You don't get over your grief. You don't get over your grief.
And
It's with you.
that is the real insulting thing
Hmm.
when I think about that. Like when somebody says to you, Nikki, you're still grieving your brother, or you're still grieving the loss, that is insulting to your brother. That's insulting to your mom. That is insulting to the magnitude of the relationship that you had with them.
Yeah.
It's completely insulting to that because
Yeah.
this is the truth. The deeper your love, the deeper your grief. They go hand in hand. We don't grieve for people we don't give a shit about. Lots of
Right.
people died today.
Right.
You didn't shed one tear for any of them,
Hmm.
right? I was
Right.
just talking about John and Brenda and echoing, about my relationship for Brian, and I could feel this flood of emotion that was coming
Hmm.
up because that's because of the depth of my relationship with Brian,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the ticket to love. The
Hmm.
ticket to a love to loving deeply is the fact that you're going to have pain afterwards. They go hand in hand. They
Yep.
go absolutely hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. Just
Right.
like you can't have night without day.
Right. It's like the old quote, grief is love with nowhere to go, right? Because it's exactly, I mean, it has a place for it to go, but no,
Yeah,
and I share all the time. I'm not embarrassed of the fact. So my brother died in 2015. It was upsetting. Obviously, it was unexpected and it hurt. He and I were not close though. And in 2021, my cat of 20 years, I had to put her down. She was 20 plus years old. At, it was time. I cried so much harder for her than I did for my brother. And that's not that I loved one more than the other. We had different relationships. That grief was very different for the cat versus my brother,
right,
you
right.
know? Anyway.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's so profound that you shared that
Yeah.
because it echoes this point. It's the depth of your love that you have for another being,
Hmm.
not the relationship or this or that. Oh, something stuffed or oh,
Right. I have people ask me all the time when they lose a parent or some relative or somebody close to them that they had either a strained or just a non-traditional relationship with, and they're like, I haven't cried. Is that weird? Like, am I wrong or am I crazy because I'm not crying and I don't feel all that? And I'm like, no, of course you're not. That's totally okay. If that's not the relationships you had, then you wouldn't cry. Like you just
it would
said,
be
how
weird.
many?
It would be weird, Nikki, if they cried.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
If you had a strained, difficult relationship with somebody and then they were gone and then
Mhm.
you were grieving and missing them and crying and feeling loss, I'd be like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
I
why?
don't
Where is this
understand
coming
like that.
from?
Right, right, right. If you
Yeah.
had a husband who beat you and abused you and
Hmm.
psychologically scarred you and raped you, and then they got in a car accident and they were gone, you would probably feel relief.
Absolutely.
Maybe a little joy.
Yeah. And I have that conversation with my caregivers when I'm working with as a death doula with people end of life. I always let talk to their caregivers because depending on how long that person has been sick, they've already gone through a lot of anticipatory grief, and I tell them, I'm like, you will feel relief at some point. I mean, you're probably, I don't know, I will never speculate how you're going to feel, but there will very likely be a time after your person has died, probably relatively soon, that you're going to have a feeling of relief. Do not feel guilty about that. That's okay to feel a little bit of relief because you're not in that role anymore.
Yeah, my mom, I went through that with my mom. She was in her mid 90s and she broke her hip, which is just a death sentence for older people who are,
Yeah,
it's not a death sentence if you're in your 60s, 70s,
right.
maybe 80s. But if when you're that age, and then she had to get a second hip surgery. So she came up here to live with Brian and I, because
Hmm.
Brian said, this is why I loved him and why I grieve so much. So we're here in Vermont. And he had a job. We had a business. He ran a restaurant. And we're greatly involved in this community. And without a doubt, he said, he came up to me and after my mom was injured, and he said, well, we're moving to Florida. That's where my mom lived, in Florida. I'm like, what? He said, we're going to go take care of your mom. We're not going to put her in an institution. We're going to be there. I'm like, what about the job? What about this? What about, he's like, that's just stuff. We're
Yeah.
going to Florida. We're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it wasn't a ploy. And so this is what happens when you live a life of honesty and integrity and true compassion. When we said that to my mom, like it was a done deal. It was in our mind, we're moving to Florida. And she said, no, she had vowed she was never going to come back up north. And she says, no, I'll move to Vermont. And so we made a room for her. Brian built a ramp for her. We built an extra kitchen for her, so that she was here, and she lived with us for a number of years. And she died here. She died in her bedroom, which is now my bedroom because I moved
Hmm.
down as we got different housemates. She died here. And we had hospice. Um,
Yeah.
and I built her casket while she was
Oh,
because this is Vermont, right? This is
well,
a
yeah.
cool state. This is a cool state.
It is it
And
is the coolest
so
state in my opinion.
this is something that you can do in Vermont, unlike
Hmm.
other places. So I built her casket, and she died. I'm on the fire department, and I never knew this is a side story. Sorry, Lou. I know I'm going on with another story. Um, I never really understood what pallbearers were for, right? Because you're
Hmm.
just like holding the casket through some ritual, but really they were meant to carry the casket.
Hmm.
And so uh, when she died, uh, the fire department, I'm on the fire department. Fire department friends came over, and I brought the casket in. We put her in the casket, in the clothes, put her favorite pillow, everything in there, and I screwed down the casket with my Ryobi drill. And Lisa, who was on the fire department, and I, um, and Brian, got in my pickup truck and put the casket in the back of my pickup truck to take her to St. Johnsbury to be cremated. And that's a heavy casket with a person in it
Hmm.
that we built.
Yeah.
Um, and my chief called ahead to the St. Johnsbury Fire Department. He did not tell me this. Um, and they saw me go by the fire department. And when I went by the fire department, the entire crew that was on the shift jumped in the fire truck and followed me to the cemetery and helped me carry my mom into the crematorium.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm getting choked up now too.
that's pretty
Oh,
cool.
that is so what a beautiful gift and how special. And I love that you built her casket. And I always encourage people like there's a beautiful new well about 15 years old now, New Earth Green Burial Ground just outside of Columbus where I am. And it is a gorgeous facility and they love when people make their own caskets. They have to be approved, like it has to be biodegradable because it's a
Hmm.
conservation land. but
Uh-huh.
I'm like, take a part in that ritual. And that's
Yeah.
something I wanted to touch on super quick because having those rituals are how we help identify our grief and start that grieving process. But you didn't quite get that with Brian.
No, no. But I got that with my mom. The point of this conversation was that after she died, I felt a relief because
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it was harder and harder and harder um as she got closer to death because she didn't
Hmm.
want to take her medication and she was cranky and she was resistant and we were her caregivers, Brian and I.
Yeah.
So if she pooped herself, we were taking care of her, cleaning her up, taking all that
Yeah.
stuff 24/7 while she was here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So, since you didn't get that same process with Brian, what did you find a way to do something on your own? Did you have some way you could start that process?
I was lucky enough to I talk about this in my book. Um so it's another long story, Lou. But Um, and you're going to cry when I tell you this story.
Oh
So,
no. Okay.
so you already know that I was in the fire department. So I had been on a Vipassana meditation course when he died, which is silence and stuff. And I could see we had these little trackers in our car. I could see on his phone that something was awry. I was on my way home from the course, and people checked, called me back, and I found out that he died, and I was still on my way up. It was from a car fire. It was from a car fire, and
Oh my God.
it was a Sunday morning, and a friend came with me, and this is where we're back to friends giving you bad advice. And I called ahead and spoke to the trooper, and this was like hours and hours. I mean, I was hours away driving home to do this. They were still on the scene. There was EMS on the scene, the fire department, and state police. Vermont's a small state. There's not a lot of people. There's not so the person that was coming to do the statewide fire investigator that was coming from 4.5, 5 hours away in the far corner of the state. So
Oh,
when I was getting up there, um, I he was not there yet. So the scene was still there. There were news crews on the scene and everything. And all roped off because they didn't know what happened, right?
yeah.
It's a crime scene as far as
Right.
state police is concerned. No one's coming in, no one's touching anything. We have to investigate, see what happened.
Yeah.
Um, I had called ahead and I was like, I want to come on the scene. I'm an EMT firefighter. I've seen this
Mhm.
before. I didn't know that it was a car fire. I thought that he got in an accident and then he froze in the snow because it was in December.
Oh.
Um, and so I didn't know any of this. The trooper said to me, I really don't think you should come. I said, I've seen this before. I'm pushy. I'm pushy. And I wouldn't take no for an answer. And I was like, I'm a professional. Come on. I can handle this.
Yeah.
And I said, I can help you because I have a tracking thing on my phone. I can show you where he went.
Hmm.
So they let me come onto the scene. I said, I can identify the body. Um, and I showed him this that when he said to me, um, I just got to tell you that the body is really badly burnt. And I was just like, my heart just dropped.
Mm.
And my friend was like, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I have to go. Because I was telling you that story
Hmm.
about my mom. And Brian, when he said we're moving to Florida, we were always there for each other, not just in easy times. 125% we were there. And so for me to have not gone on the scene, um, would have flown in the face of that.
Hmm.
And So I got on the scene, talked to them, um, and I said, I want to identify the body, and I can do that for you. And I was expecting it to be in the car. It was complete. The car was completely burned. Everything was gone. The windows
Oh,
were gone. The tires were gone. The whole inside of the car was gone.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
and the car used to be black, but it was now this ashen white, if
Yeah.
you can imagine it. Um, and they said he's on the side of the car, and I was like, I didn't understand how that could be. Um, and uh, and then as I walked over, it hit me, and he was under a yellow tarp, and I was like, how did he get out? So the driver's door was wedged against the tree, and the
Mm,
passenger door was open. Um, and when they lifted up the tarp, I could see him. He was like in army crawling mode, crawling toward the car. His head was toward the passenger door of the car. And so, which means that, you know, he was alive. And I know this as a firefighter, how excruciatingly painful
hmm
dying by fire,
hmm
you know, is. He was alert and aware enough that he crawled from the driver's seat of this car. And just think about this, how cars are built,
hmm
over the center console and into the passenger seat, opened the passenger door, crawled out to go away from the car, and then somehow turned around and was facing the car before he died. Um, and I felt such compassion and empathy for what he had gone through. I knew right away when I saw him that it was him. I mean, we were together for 31 years. We slept every night next to each other.
hmm
I could only see the back of his neck. I could see his hand. He had a clattering on his hand that we had exchanged for our 10th anniversary together, because there was a time when you were gay, you couldn't get married.
Right.
Um, and I said to the trooper, I said, I have to touch him on his shoulder and say goodbye. And the trooper said, no, you can't do that. This is a crime scene. I said, I don't care. I'm going to do that. And I reached out and I put my hand on his right shoulder, and I told him how much I loved him and how grateful I was to have spent a chunk of my life with him, and said goodbye. I am so grateful to the troopers and the EMS personnel for not stopping me and letting me do that. Others, anywhere else in the world, this would not have happened. I'm confident that this would not have happened. Um, that was so important to me. Um, I got his clattering back. And so the way that clatterings work, for those of you that don't know it, is that how you wear it on your hand represents your relationship. So if you
hmm
wear it on your left hand with the heart going towards you, you're married. If it's going away, you're uh in you're engaged. If you wear it on your
hmm
right hand with it going towards you, you're kind of dating somebody steady. And if it's on your right hand pointing away, you're single or
hmm
widowed. And so I got his clattering back, and there it is.
Oh,
Um, Resized for me.
that's beautiful. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Um, I I mean, obviously, I can tell just even before you share that story how deep your love is for Brian and what this relationship and what this grief journey meant for you. So thank you. And I'm hoping, I don't hope this kind of type of pain for anybody, but I hope if there's anybody listening that has experienced something similar or some type of traumatic loss like that, can at least identify with this and feel a little less alone in their grief.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll tell you this if you're listening to this. I would not change any of this. I would not change a single thing. And this is you saw me crying. This is years and years after he died. This is
Hmm.
not screwed up. I don't have prolonged grief disorder. I'm a human being disorder. Um,
I like that.
um, and what I hope you saw in this was the depth of my love and commitment towards him. Not, oh, Scott needs treatment,
Hmm.
right? And I still wake up at times dreaming and totally anxious about seeing his body.
Yeah,
And
well,
that
sure.
choice that my friend had said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to her
Yeah,
because that would be, I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't do that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
we have to embrace the good and the bad in our life. It's not just
yeah,
about, I don't know, some perfect thing that
yeah.
somebody told us we have to have.
Right. Agree. Ah, okay. Whew. So I have a little tradition on my podcast when we get towards the end of the episode that I pull a random card from the death deck. I don't know if you're familiar with the death
Oh,
deck, but it's a very large deck of cards, and they're just like conversation starter type questions about death, dying, grief, etc. And
well,
I'm
that's good
going,
because we haven't had any very deep
no,
conversations on
no,
this.
we haven't.
It's good to have a card to get us going.
You are never going to freaking believe this is the second time in a row I have pulled a card. We've already answered this. I'm going to read it anyway. Ha. Okay. So your significant other dies. What areas do you struggle with the most? A, making money and managing the household. B, raising the kids. Or C, the emotional support. That was this whole episode.
It is. It is.
So I don't even know that we need to answer this.
No, I think you know what that's a good thing to show though for people that are listening. The the reason those people make those cards is that these are important conversations to
They
have.
are. That is
And
the purpose
that's
behind
why
the
they
death
do that,
deck. Hmm.
right? And so I want to challenge you if you're grieving to talk about this shit.
Yeah,
But you don't
please.
need the cards to talk about this shit. The cards are there because there's something going on in somebody's life and they're not talking about this
Hmm.
stuff. You want to live the life so that if somebody pulls that card, you're like, "Oh, I already talked about this." Or because
Yeah.
you're living in a life that's transparent, that's
Hmm.
honest, that is in alignment
Yeah.
with who you are.
Yeah. Agree. And as far as my answer for this, mine, I don't know that I will struggle with any of these because financially, my husband and I are both pretty equal on things, so I think I'd be okay in that respect. We don't have children, so I don't have to worry about children. And I have such a huge support system that I have, and you learn when somebody close to you dies, and I know who my people are after my mom died because they're the people that are still showing up for me months later. So
Oh.
I think I'm okay.
Did you hear what she just said? Here's another thing I want to point out to you listeners.
Please.
She said, you learn who your people are. If you are grieving and you have not lost friends over this, that's a miracle. You're
Yeah.
going to lose friends. You're going to have, because there are a lot of people that have their head up their butt. And
Hmm.
especially if you are grieving in a way that you don't need a deck to tell you, and you're being that transparent, there are people that are going to be like, I can't deal with this. I don't want to be in your life.
Right.
Or they're going to
Yep.
give you some crazy advice
Right.
and then expect that you need to get over it and you're going to push back
Hmm.
and that will be the end of your friendship. Be
Yeah.
prepared. Be prepared.
Be prepared. All right. Scott, thank you for all of this. I want to give you just a minute here. Please tell my listeners where your other books and where they can find you and or connect with you if they would like to.
It's really easy. All you have to do is Google this name right here, G. Scott Graham, and everything will come up. My books, my podcasts, this podcast, everything is there. Just Google G. Scott Graham.
Awesome. I'll put links in the description too. So,
okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott, so much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing your story with me today. All right. Another huge thank you and shout out to G. Scott Graham for being on my show and telling his story. And I got all emotional again just re-listening to that. So thank you, Scott, for being on my show. And if you want to reach out to Scott, I've got links in the chat. If you want to reach out to me, I said chat. I meant description. The description and the thing below I've got contact information for me. You can reach out to Scott. You can join my Patreon. You can join the Good Grief Society and talk with other fans of the show and other people who are grieving. Please, I would love to see you over there. You can find anything and everything at nikkithedeathdoula.com. Well, not everything, but I mean, everything is relation to this podcast. You can find it somewhere on that website. So please head over there. But thank you all so much for tuning in this week. I hope you have an amazing week. And remember, as always, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC.